Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. We cover a lot of different topics on this show, some pretty complex stuff. But today we're going to talk about something that affects every single one of us, every single day.
Let me guess. Taxes.
Well, taxes are definitely part of it, but I'm talking about personal financial management.
Got it. The art of making our money work for us, not against us.
Exactly. And to help us navigate this sometimes tricky terrain, we're diving into some excerpts from a book by Brian Tracy and Dan Strutzel, two guys who spent a lot of time thinking about this stuff. Brian Tracy, you've probably heard of him. He's a big name in personal and professional development.
Oh, for sure. Speaker, author, consultant, the whole 9 yards. He's got a ton of experience helping people achieve success in all areas of life, including their finances. And Dan Strutzel, his co-author on this book, has a background in research and personal development as well.
So we're in good hands, right? And today, our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to pull out the most valuable insights from their work.
Like those golden nuggets of wisdom that we can actually apply to our own lives.
Precisely. So are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, great. So before we get into all the strategies and tactics, let's start with the basics. What exactly is money?
Well, on the surface, it seems pretty simple, right? Money is just that stuff we use to buy things.
Yeah, so the thing we earn, spend, save, maybe even occasionally lose under the couch cushions.
Exactly. But the book digs a little deeper than that. It reminds us that money, at its core, is really a medium of exchange. It's a way for us to trade the value of our work, our skills, our products for the things we need and want.
Right. It's like this agreed-upon system that allows us to trade our time and effort for goods and services. It's a lot more efficient than bartering, that's for sure.
Imagine trying to trade a basket of potatoes for a new car.
Oh man, my back hurts just thinking about it. But there's another interesting point the authors make. They suggest that money really represents the stored value of your labor, the effort you put in.
Like, it's a tangible representation of your hard work, your skills, your contribution to the world.
And that's an important shift in perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because if money is the stored value of your labor, then it makes you think about how you're spending that value and what you're getting in return.
Totally. And it ties directly into what the book calls the first rule of wealth, which basically states that your income can only grow to the extent that you can provide value to others.
So the more value you can offer, the more you can potentially earn. It's a pretty straightforward concept, but it's easy to lose sight of in the day-to-day hustle.
Absolutely. And the book also emphasizes that it's not just about the value you think you're providing, but also how much value other people perceive you to be offering. Yeah, sometimes there's a disconnect between those two.
Right, like you could be incredibly skilled and knowledgeable in your field, but if you're not good at communicating that value to others, or if you're in a field where that value isn't recognized, you might not be compensated accordingly.
Exactly. So understanding that interplay between actual value and perceived value is super important.
Okay, so we've established that money is essentially stored value, and that the more value we provide, the more we can potentially earn. But how do we actually go about earning more? How do we amplify that value?
Well, the book has some interesting observations about that, particularly when it comes to work habits. It's not just about working harder, it's about working smarter.
Right, because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's how we use those hours that makes the difference.
And one thing the authors point out is that there's often a correlation between income levels and the number of hours worked. They say that people in the top 20% of income earners often work significantly more hours per week, like in the 59 to 60-hour range.
Wow, that's almost like having a whole extra part-time job on top of a full-time one.
It is. But they also emphasize that it's not just about blindly grinding away. It's about having the right habits. Things like starting your day early, really focusing on your work, and minimizing distractions.
And let's be honest, in today's world, distractions are everywhere. It's so easy to get sucked into social media or lose track of time browsing the internet.
Oh, I know. I'm guilty of that myself sometimes. But the point the book makes is that all those little distractions can really add up and steal our precious time. And time, as they say, is money.
Couldn't agree more. Every minute you spend scrolling through your phone is a minute you could be using to learn a new skill, build a new project, or connect with someone who could potentially help you grow your income.
And speaking of skills, the book places a huge emphasis on continuous learning. It's not just about working hard, it's about constantly improving your skills and knowledge. They even suggest spending an hour a day learning something new in your field.
An hour a day. That actually seems doable, especially when you consider the long-term benefits. It's like investing in yourself, making yourself more valuable to the marketplace.
Exactly. And the authors bring in a quote from Earl Nightingale, who said that the compensation you receive will be in direct proportion to the value you provide. So the more you learn, the more you grow, the more value you can offer, and the more you can potentially earn.
It all circles back to that first rule of wealth we talked about. And I love this other point they make, that extraordinary income often comes from doing ordinary things extraordinarily well.
Right, like it's not always about some flashy new invention or groundbreaking idea. It's often about taking those everyday tasks, those seemingly mundane things, and doing them with a level of excellence that sets you apart.
It's about mastering the fundamentals, having that attention to detail, that commitment to quality that shines through in everything you do.
And that, I think, is something we can all strive for, regardless of our field or profession.
Absolutely. Now, so far, we focused on the earning more side of the equation. But what about the other side? What we do with the money we earn is arguably even more important. And that brings us to the realm of saving and investing.
Right, because it's not just about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. And that's where saving and investing come into play.
And the book introduces a really interesting concept here, the power of 1%.
Yes, this idea is all about making small, incremental improvements in your financial habits over time. You know, it's about the power of compounding.
It's that classic snowball effect. You start small, but as you save and invest consistently, those gains start to build on each other, and over time, it can create a surprisingly significant amount of wealth.
Exactly. And the book stresses that even if you can only save a tiny percentage of your income right now, it's important to start somewhere. Don't underestimate the power of those seemingly small contributions over the long haul.
And they also bring up the concept of paying yourself first, which I think is a fantastic principle. Could you explain that one a bit more?
Sure. Paying yourself first basically means that before you pay any of your other bills or expenses, you automatically set aside a certain amount of money into savings or investments. You know, it's like making your future financial security a non-negotiable part of your budget.
It takes the decision-making out of it. It's not about saving what's left over at the end of the month, which, let's face it, is often nothing. It's about making saving a priority, an essential expense right from the start.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's the whole concept of compounding returns, which is where things get really exciting.
The magic of compounding, right? It's like watching your money make babies, and then those babies start making babies, and so on.
That's one way to put it. But yeah, it's essentially earning returns not just on your initial investment, but also on the accumulated interest or profits from previous periods. And the book emphasizes that the earlier you start investing, the more time those returns have to compound, and the bigger the impact it can have on your long-term wealth.
And it's not just about investing in traditional things like stocks or bonds. The book also talks about the importance of investing in yourself through education, skills development, personal growth.
Right, because those investments can lead to higher earning potential, more career opportunities, and a greater sense of fulfillment in your work, which can all contribute to greater financial well-being in the long run.
So investing in yourself is like investing in your own personal growth stock, with potentially huge dividends down the line.
I like that analogy. And speaking of investments, it's important to remember that not all debt is created equal. The book makes a clear distinction between good debt and bad debt.
Ah, yes, the debt dilemma. Seems like everyone has an opinion on this one.
Well, the book defines good debt as debt that's used to acquire assets that are likely to increase in value over time.
Like a house, for example.
Exactly. Or a business loan that helps you generate income. You know, debt that's used strategically to build wealth. Bad debt, on the other hand, is typically consumer debt, like high-interest credit cards, used for purchases that don't appreciate in value and don't generate income.
Right, like that impulse buy you made online that you're still paying interest on months later.
Exactly. That kind of debt can really weigh you down and hinder your financial progress. And the book provides some solid strategies for getting out of bad debt, you know, creating a repayment plan, prioritizing high-interest debts, and being wary of predatory lending practices. They even touch on the debt snowball method, which can be helpful for some people.
Yeah, the debt snowball is all about building momentum by paying off your smallest debts first, regardless of interest rates, just to get those quick wins and stay motivated.
It's a psychological game, but hey, whatever works, right?
Absolutely. Now, so far we've covered a lot of ground. Earning more, saving and investing wisely, and managing debt effectively. But there's another level to this whole personal finance game, and that's actively building wealth and long-term prosperity.
Right, it's about going beyond just managing money and actually creating a solid foundation for financial security and abundance.
And the book talks about the importance of having multiple streams of income.
Yes, that's a key principle. Relying solely on a single source of income can be risky. So building additional revenue streams can provide a safety net and accelerate your wealth building journey.
Like having multiple pillars supporting your financial house.
Exactly. And the book also highlights the importance of finding work or business ventures that align with your passions and natural talents.
Because when you're doing something you love, you're more likely to put in the extra effort, be more creative, and ultimately be more successful, right?
Exactly. And they talk about this concept of customer co-creation, which is basically about really understanding what your customers need and want and involving them in the creation process.
So it's about building products and services that people actually desire, not just pushing out something and hoping it sticks.
Right. And they use examples like Apple and Microsoft, companies that have been incredibly successful at understanding and anticipating their customers' needs. And then, of course, there's the ongoing emphasis on continuous improvement and innovation.
Because in today's fast-paced world, if you're not constantly learning and adapting, you're falling behind.
Exactly. And they talk about the importance of focusing on your core strengths, what you're really good at, and potentially outsourcing tasks that are outside your expertise.
So it's about working smarter, not harder, and building a team that complements your skills.
Exactly. And the book also touches on real estate as a potential avenue for wealth creation and the importance of collaboration and shared interests in business partnerships.
Now, it's important to remember that money isn't just about numbers and spreadsheets. There's a very real psychological aspect to it.
See.
And the book delves into the connection between money and happiness.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. We all know that money can't buy happiness, but it can definitely reduce stress and provide more freedom and opportunities.
Look at having more options, more choices, more control over your life.
Exactly. But the book also warns against the trap of social comparison, constantly measuring your financial status against others, which can lead to a never-ending cycle of dissatisfaction.
It's that keeping up with the Joneses mentality that can be so toxic.
Exactly. And they stress the importance of defining your own financial goals and what truly brings you happiness and fulfillment, rather than chasing someone else's definition of success.
So it's about aligning your financial decisions with your values and priorities. And they also mentioned the concept of a freedom number, the amount of money you need to live comfortably without having to work.
Right, that's your personal financial independence benchmark. And it's different for everyone depending on your lifestyle and aspirations. And interestingly, the book also talks about the importance of generosity and giving back as a part of a fulfilling financial life.
So it's not just about accumulating wealth. It's about using it in a way that aligns with your values and makes a positive impact on the world.
Exactly. And they also talk about the issue of self-sabotage, those negative beliefs and behaviors that can hold us back financially.
Like those limiting beliefs about money or those ingrained spending habits that we just can't seem to break.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes the importance of having a positive and empowered mindset around money, believing that you can achieve your financial goals.
Okay, so we've talked about the psychology of money, but there's also the practical side of things, financial planning and protection.
Right, because even with the best intentions, life can throw us curveballs.
And that's where having a solid financial plan comes in, right?
Absolutely. The book emphasizes the importance of having a plan that encompasses your savings, investments, debt management strategies, and even things like estate planning.
And let's not forget about insurance.
Oh, yes. Insurance is crucial. Having adequate health, auto, home, and liability coverage can protect you from those unexpected events that can really derail your finances.
It's like having a safety net, just in case.
Exactly. And the book also talks about the value of seeking professional financial advice when needed. Sometimes it's worth getting expert guidance to help you navigate those more complex financial decisions.
Now, as we've been going through all this, I've noticed some recurring themes, some fundamental truths about building and managing wealth. The book refers to these as laws of wealth, doesn't it?
It does. And they basically summarize the key principles we've been discussing: the law of value, the law of income, the law of saving, the law of investment, and the overarching law of prosperity.
And these aren't just isolated rules, are they? They all work together, like pieces of a puzzle.
Exactly. Building wealth isn't about mastering one area in isolation. It's about integrating all these principles into a holistic approach.
It's about understanding the big picture and making consistent, informed decisions that support your long-term financial goals.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. There's always something new to learn, new strategies to try, and new ways to grow.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive into the world of personal finance, based on the insights from Brian Tracy and Dan Strutzel. It's clear that achieving financial well-being isn't about some quick fix or magic formula.
It's about understanding the fundamental principles, developing good habits, and making consistent effort over time.
And as you've been listening to this, I hope you've had some aha moments, some ideas that you can apply to your own situation.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, just remember that you don't have to do everything at once. Just pick one or two small things that you can start implementing today.
Even those small steps can make a big difference over time. And here's a final thought for you to ponder. Think about which of these principles resonated most strongly with you, the one that feels most relevant to your current financial situation.
And then ask yourself, how might consistently applying that one principle transform your financial future? It's a question worth exploring.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.